I'll say.
Go ahead and call the
I'll call the call.
Okay.
Thank you, Don.
March 17th meeting of the Board of Directors for the Paulding County Airport Authority to order. With that said, I'd like to lean on our Vice Chairman here, Harold Wincall, for the invocation.
Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for this day. We thank you, Lord, for the people that are gathered here today, for the members of the board, for the interested members from the community. We ask that your blessings be upon each and every one of them and their families. As we go through our deliberations, Lord, we ask that you have your blessings on this meeting. We ask these things in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
Thank you, Harold. Welcome all. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'd also like to welcome our newest member of the Airport Authority, Mr. Sam Hill. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your time for the county. I believe everybody has a copy of the resume that was distributed of Sam. And at this time, Sam, I believe you had time with Terry, correct?
Yes, I
You got a
am.
little, okay, great, awesome. If you wish, I'll give you a little bit of time to tell the board about yourself or what you think how you can help the county out. The floor is yours, whatever you'd like to do, Sam.
Thank you. Well, I grew up in North Carolina, Greensboro, and I worked for Piedmont Aviation in the early part of my career while I was going to college. I was a station agent, and then I went from there to flight school. It's no longer in existence, but it was the Aviation Academy in North Carolina. Got my commercial instrument, multi-engine, and flight instructor ratings, became a corporate pilot, and flew corporately for 25 years. And then Piedmont invited me to come back to the company while they were still Piedmont Airlines. And I worked for them as the general manager of aircraft flight services, which was basically overseeing all their FBO facilities that they owned at the time. From there, U.S. Airways bought Piedmont, and from there, an investment group approached me to start our own company called L Aviation. It was a subsidiary of Brook Investment Group, and we did aircraft charter, sales, and management of aircraft. Actually built a few hangars and had a very nice operation going until Brook Group decided to get out of the business and go into the Soviet Union, and I was invited to go with them, and we struck a deal with Mil Moscow Helicopter Plant, Mil Design Bureau, and we created the company Millbrook Helicopters. And we were trying to teach them basically how to do a Western business in the Soviet Union around the world. After that, Yeltsin became president, and he saw that Mil was a strategic company for the country of Russia, and so he bought us out of our partnership there, and we invested that money in Embraer, and I became the president of the U.S. Subsidiary of Embraer and the commercial director for Embraer worldwide. And we had a very successful run with the ERJ program, and at that point they asked me, since I was the only executive with corporate aviation experience, if I would start the corporate aviation side of Embraer. So I did that for the company, and after retiring from Embraer in 2003, a very successful run with the company, turned it around. I went into consulting with a company out of Atlanta, and then Honda Jet asked me if I'd come help them establish their Honda Jet program. So I went there as executive vice president for about 3.5 years, and Quest Aircraft Company was owned by 14 mission groups, and they knew of my background supporting mission aviation, and they asked if I would come there in Sandpoint, Idaho, and help them turn the company around and try to get the investments that the donors for these mission groups had put into Quest Aircraft. Quest had basically gone bankrupt. They lost all their investment money. Fortunately for us, and I say the Lord did it, we were very successful turning the company around and sold the company for twice its value to a Japanese holding company, and we were able to give all the donors, or really the mission group, all their investment back, and it was a very successful ending for that. I had to stay on a few years with the new group and sat on their board until the end of, well, right in the beginning of 2019, and I retired at that point. So thank you, a little long-winded, but a long career.
And you can see why I got a 5-0 vote with the board commissioner.
Yes. Absolutely. Well, welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, next on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from the February 17th meeting. It's all have been distributed for you. Are there any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we'll go ahead to a vote. All in favor of the meeting minutes as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, motion passes. Next up are our financial statements. These were distributed as well. I'd like to make a comment again, if we could, in checking with Mr. Posey to give us to ask for a different view of these various reports so that we have better visibility of what's going on. What I mean by that is it's the opinion on several of the board that we would like to see not only current month or months or quarters that we're reporting, but also last year's as well as to budget to give us a better picture. So that would just be 3 columns. And this is QuickBooks, and that should be very easily done. So we'd like to make that request going forward, and I can talk to Yolanda and yourself after this to be very descriptive, make sure we get it down. But we'd love to have that. Okay, with that said, any questions on the financials? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we approve the financials as written.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor of the financials as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None are opposed, motion carries. Next up, Terry, you have the floor.
All right. So let me address that last statement about year-to-date as compared to last year. We'll need a little clarification on that because our construction is typically funded by grants, which do wind up eventually in the financials, but there's no comparison from year to year on what kind of grant we're going to get. And so you may see $5 million spent last year and 0 this year, or vice versa. And it's because our grant income, which is part of our overall income, varies all of them out. So we'll need some guidance on how you want to see that presented. Last year, in the last fiscal year, which would have been FY20, which ended last June, we were not running the FBO. So now we're running the FBO. So our expenditures, our budget looks completely different this year as compared to last year because of that. So that's an area that we'll have to just make sure everybody understands that there's no comparison that we can make between then and now. And then because we are running the FBO for the first time, and that happened after we approved our budget for this year, there may be some better ways to split that out. So, we may need like an FBO column, for example, so that we have an FBO budget and a regular airport operations budget. So I need a little bit more information from you on exactly what you want to see. I mean, all of this is public information, so we'll get you everything that you want, just like we would for anyone. I just need to make sure I understand how you want it presented. So we'll work together and make sure we've got that. The only other thing that I wanted to talk about was gas prices. I don't know if anybody has noticed that gas has been going up a little bit. And you as the managers, owners, sponsors of the airport, now unfortunately you need to understand a little bit about how airports handle fuel sales and fuel purchases and how it differs from what you see when you go down to QT and fill your car up. So The business model at airports tends to be that we buy fuel on average about every other month or once a quarter. We have a very large fuel farm over here. We've got 10,000 plus gallons of Jet A storage, and we'll soon have 10,000 plus gallons of 100 low lead as soon as our fuel truck, 100 low lead fuel truck is delivered in about a month. And so we sell about 50,000 gallons total during the year. So that means we're filling these tanks up about 2, 3, 4 times a year, something on that order, depending on what kind of sales we've got. So when you go look at fuel prices in a 45-mile radius of the Paulding County Airport, which I do every morning, the prices vary greatly. So the cheapest price this morning was $3.53 a gallon for 100 low lead. The highest price is always at Hartsfield, and it was, I think, $7.90 a gallon there. PDK, McCollum, and Fulton County always run about $2 a gallon higher than we are. And it's, in my opinion, as an aviator, I consider it gouging. They might tell you that their operating expenses are higher than ours. There's probably some truth to both. But we're not really in the peer group with PDK, Fulton County, and McCollum. So I typically discount those when I'm trying to figure out is our fuel price about right or not. And I look at Newnan, Pickens County, Carrollton, Cartersville, Lawrenceville, that group of airports that are really in our peer group. And in that peer group even, so this morning we saw Carrollton, for example, who tends to be the low price in our region. Carrollton was at $3.53 a gallon. We're at $3.99 a gallon. That's because we bought gas about 3 weeks ago, and we paid more than $3.53 a gallon for that fuel that we put in our tank. So obviously we can't sell gas and make money on it for $3.53. And neither can Carrollton, but they're selling their old gas, and they tend to not up their price until they get a new fuel load. And then they'll set their price accordingly. So if they bought gas today, their price would be probably higher than ours. So these fuel prices tend to bounce all over the place, and even aviators typically don't understand. They'll say, well, Carrollton can sell gas for $3.53, why can't you? Well, Carrollton can't sell gas for $3.53 next week. And so we have to sort of mitigate that a little bit by sometimes we might lose a little bit, sometimes we might make a little bit more on our fuel because we have to be competitive, but at the same time, we've got to be sensitive to what it is that we're paying for that fuel. And because it comes in such slow chunks, like every other month, every third month, it makes it a little harder to manage that aspect of the business. So you may get questions, aviators may call you up from time to time and either say, boy, I'm really happy to see Paulding County's got the cheapest gas in the region, which we did about a month ago. We were the lowest price supplier for about a month. And then we had to buy gas. And we had to pay almost $1 a gallon more for that gas than we had the previous fuel load that we got 3 months ago. So that's why you see that. And it's a very sluggish system because the volumes are so low as compared to automobile gas. When you go by QT every morning at about 7 o'clock, you see the fuel truck out there dumping fuel. If you don't see it again tomorrow, you will the day after. I mean, they're getting fuel multiple times a week, typically, at these really big stations.
So Terry, do you have a formula as far as above what we pay for it? Certain percentage?
I try to be about 50 cents a gallon on 100 low lead, but I also am sensitive to being competitive in our market. So if prices have gone down and we got a really good deal, we might make 75 cents on that load. Sometimes we might only make a quarter because I'm trying to hit that sweet spot so that we get the transient traffic. We get a lot of transient traffic in here because of our fuel prices, and I'm trying to keep that volume going. So it's not an exact formula, but I'm trying to hit about a 50-cent markup, and that covers all of our operating expenses for labor, for the fuel truck, for managing the fuel farm and so forth.
I mean, you add a nickel for Yolanda working here.
Oh, no, 25 cents for your labor. So any questions on how all of that, that process is handled? Because y'all are now in the fuel business. Yes, sir.
That's full service?
No, that's self-service.
That's self-service. right?
Today, we don't have we don't have a full service, 100 low lead truck. That'll be delivered on 1 May.
Okay.
We've ordered one, but it takes time to get those trucks, together and certified, so we won't see that for another 6 weeks.
Yeah.
All right, that's all I've got. If anybody's got any. Yes,
Terry,
sir.
I got a question on fuel.
Yeah.
On our financials, we have a fuel line that's called a fuel sales other. What is that referring to as compared to the avgas and the Jet A?
So fuel sales other is a relic from last year's budget, and it has to do with when, so you've got these racers, for example, who think that it makes their car go faster if they put aviation fuel in it. And we don't want to tell them that it really doesn't, because we do like selling fuel to them. So that might go into that category, for example.
We have $11,000 in sales of that other last month, based on our financials.
Okay, I'll have to look at that and see where Chuck is putting that, or where he's getting that
If you
from.
could, please.
Okay,
Because what I saw from last month to this month is our avgas and our, and I gotta put my glasses back on, but our avgas and our Jet A,
yeah,
were down extremely, but our fuel other was up tremendously.
okay, I'll ask him how
So,
he's accounting for that.
That's my question is, did Chuck put the number in the wrong spot?
Could be, yeah,
Okay.
I'll look at that.
Thank you.
That's not any of the income from, say, the filming or anything like that?
No,
We wouldn't
no,
use
that's not a fuel sale.
Okay.
Anything else? All right.
Thank you, Terry. Next on our agenda is the vote on the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplement Appropriation Act, the CARES Act, FA grant in the amount of $13,000 for economic assistance. Who was this initiated by, Terry?
I better just stand up here for the next 3 or 4.
Yeah, I think you should.
All right, so let's talk about CARES Act. So we are living in very interesting times, and those times become even more interesting for government expenditures and funding. I'm not going to get into the politics of this. I'll tell you what I told Dave Carmichael the other day. If we don't spend it, San Francisco will. So my obligation as the airport manager is to collect all money that I am legally entitled to and to spend it in ways that, that are beneficial to the citizens of Paulding County. So that's my introduction to this. You will remember that there have now been 3 coronavirus-related economic stimulus / support packages that have been signed by the federal government. Let's talk about each one of those 3 as they affect the airport. Last March or April, we had the CARES Act 1, and that CARES Act 1 is where everybody got $1,200, okay? And so most people understand this by how much money they got, okay? So let's talk about the $1,200 a person package first. The federal government also put in hundreds of millions of dollars in that CARES Act for the aviation industry. In Georgia, about $100 million of that came to airports, that went directly to airports. 90% of that funding went to Hartsfield. But your general aviation airports also got about $1.5 to $2 million divided up equally amongst the airports based on the number of operations and based on the size, the runway dimensions, those kind of things. They had a formula, and they published a table And they said, if you're in column A of this table, you get this much. If you're in column B, you get this much. All airports our size last year got $30,000 of what I'm going to call economic stimulus money. The way the CARES Act one was written, it said it can be used for any legal purpose at the airport. Okay? So that just makes it stimulus money. They were trying to keep the aviation industry afloat. Okay? Because the aviation industry was hit particularly hard, as hotels and restaurants and some other industries were. Then you fast forward to November, December, January, and you remember the debate over the $600 package that Donald Trump finally signed in January, I think it was. And that's the one where he said, no, everybody ought to get $2,000 apiece. But it wound up being $600 for individuals, and by the same formula as was used in the previous year, our cut on that was $13,000. And again, it's economic stimulus money. We can use it for any legal purpose that the airport can spend money on. We will probably use it on salaries to augment our salaries budget, and it offsets losses that we are having right now because we're not renting this building as much as we did the year before. Okay, because not as many people are having parties and weddings and so forth, and that's a significant, measurable part of our income. So this motion that is before you is to authorize me to proceed with the grant writing and reception of the $13,000 pot of money that has been allocated by the FAA to airports our size. Okay? I will also need a vote eventually from the Board of Commissioners, just like we did last year. But I want to go ahead and get y'all's vote now so that I can press forward getting the grant process. And then when the grant has been presented to us and ready to sign, I'll then go to the Board of Commissioners and ask them to approve it because they, remember, actually receive all of our grants. So any questions about the source of this money and why it's $13,000?
I think we got it there.
Okay.
It's free money. Well,
It's
actually,
economic
some money
stimulus
coming
money.
back here.
Yeah.
I make a motion that we approve the receipt of the coronavirus response and release supplemental appropriation act, FAA grant in the amount of $13,000 for economic assistance.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None are opposed? Thank you. We'll move on to the special event permit for Pauling Chamber of Commerce for May 15th.
All right, I'll defer to Cynthia.
We have, since I've been hired at the chamber in 2013, we have not been able to hold our annual awards gala locally. That's due to size restrictions. We usually gather around 300 people for that event. So we've been forced to take it out of the community. So we were really working hard this year in postponing the event, which is typically January, February timeframe, to look for a facility in Paulding. And we know that numbers will be a little bit reduced this year with social distancing and spacing. We needed a facility we could utilize different areas. So we have the hopes of using the airport on May 15th for our annual awards gala. This is where we award not only business members, but also our Citizen of the Year. And we'd love to hold it here and use the different areas of the airport interior, of course, and host our awards event.
And there are no conflicts with other activities planned at the airport for that weekend, and it will have no adverse impact on operations.
This is primarily an evening event.
Yes, it'll start at 6 and we will conclude around 9:30, 10 o'clock.
You say various areas, you
Yeah.
have a particular sign.
Yes, we'll be using this room downstairs, the lobby, the side room up here, to space people out. Because we're following the current restrictions in place, so we'll be spacing tables, spacing people. We'll have dining more up here with a served buffet area, and then downstairs will be the awards program, and party space, because it's a celebration as well.
Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I got two questions.
Go ahead.
Being the new guy here still. As part of that permit that the package that they signed with us, Terry, is there any line item in there on how much insurance coverage they've got to provide for themselves for the event?
Can you address that, Tom?
I don't know, I'd have to look at it, but I don't know off the top of my head.
We do get event insurance, and then our caterer is licensed and insured as
Okay.
well. I don't know the amounts of those though.
Okay. And is there a fee that we are going to be charging to the,
The chamber is a tenant at the airport. They rent an office downstairs, and our policy in the past has been that we do not charge tenants for common space. And it's, in fact, in the leases, that tenants have access to common areas at no charge. It's got to be on a non-interference basis. I mean, they can't just demand to have the whole building anytime they want it. But on a non-interference basis, parking lots, conference rooms, and those sort of things are available to tenants.
It does require $1 million liability policy.
perfect, thank you.
One question, you're gonna prevent anybody from going out on the ramp area?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Is the door locked, or you have security, how do you do that?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Do we have a second for the motion?
Second.
All right. All right, this time we'll vote. All in favor of approval of the special event permit for the Paulding Chamber of Commerce for their May 15th gala, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And I abstain from that vote since it was my organization.
Duly noted. Okay. The next motion is to change the date of the special event permit that we approved previously for the Museum of Flight fly-in from May 22nd, 2021 to May 30th, 2021, 11 a.m. to sundown. Terry.
Okay. This one's real short and easy. What happened was Atlanta's fly-in or air show, whatever it is that they're having, changed their date to lay on top of the date that y'all had already approved for the museum's fly-in. And so they're requesting a different date. And we can support that date. It doesn't interfere with other things that we've got planned. We can manage we did have a couple of events over that weekend, but we can mitigate that, we can manage it. So my recommendation is that you approve this change of date. Again, you've already approved the event, we're just changing the date.
And who scheduled to fly in at the same time?
Oh, Atlanta Air Show.
Atlanta Air Show?
At
Yeah,
what
the Atlanta
airport?
Air Show changed their date.
Is that the one at Dobbins? or what?
No, Peachtree City?
Oh,
No, I'm sorry, it's at, Hampton,
okay,
the raceway, the racetrack.
okay.
Just south of Atlanta.
Got it. Any questions? No? I'll entertain a motion to approve the special event permit change from May 22nd to May 30th.
So
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No, motion carries. And the next one is to, a memo of understanding for the Museum of Flight to support and provide their gala scheduled for April 17th. Do you want to tell us a little about that, Terry?
Yep, so again, this date has already been approved. The Museum of Flight has come to us with some special requests that wasn't covered in the original approval that we got. So I sent y'all a memo yesterday, late in the day yesterday, hopefully everybody got that. And basically it just clarifies an understanding between us and the museum on what areas they can use, how we're going to support them in this. And let me address one thing. When the museum comes to events like that, or when the chamber comes to events like that, these are all community events. Hearts for Heroes is a good example. And these things are just great, in my opinion, for the airport and for the community and for our exposure and getting people out here and using the facilities that we have. Now, having said that, when they're making special requests, like they want to put up a big tent out in a out-of-the-way place on the ramp over here that we can easily support. But I want y'all to be aware, I want to fully disclose to y'all what's going on and what we're doing. I don't want you to drive up here one day and see a 40 by 100 foot tent, say, we never approved that, that's what this is about. And I'll be happy to address any of the specific stipulations in here if you've got any questions about any of this. But this is to guarantee that we don't interfere with the normal day-to-day operations of the airport. Because we are a public general aviation airport, I've still got to be able to support all comers to the airfield and make sure we've got the ramp open and those kinds of things.
Again, the insurance issue,
Same form that we sign for any special event. So Tom says it's in there and covered.
$1 million. Is this still accurate?
Yes,
So where you've got the tent set up is on part of the concrete ramp there?
correct.
How are they gonna anchor that tent? Do you know?
That I don't know. Do you know how they anchor
The
it?
water,
Water bags?
yeah.
Okay. And you may have a question about how are we gonna put up the lighted barriers? If you ever come up here at night and you look over here in the dumpster storage area, we don't have a dumpster, but it blinks all night long. And those are solar-powered lights on low barriers. They're airfield barriers so that you don't get a prop strike on them. And that's what we're gonna use to put up the lighted barrier around the tent so that any aircrew coming in at night would know that that's an area closed.
Have you had additional talks with Mr. O'Hare since, you know, middle of, end of last week? I can't remember.
We talk a lot. So yes.
Okay.
Any questions about the gala? And I hope everybody comes. by
Yes,
the way.
please come to the gala.
Yeah.
For the gala, the parking you've got off to the side, the undeveloped area next to the ramp there where the static displays is supposed to be. How do they enter in there? How do the automobiles?
So we'll block the automobile gate open. We'll have a volunteer station there.
That's over here?
I actually have hired valet service.
Oh, okay, okay. So this gate will be open.
This
Right, and so they can drop their passengers off. I mean, they'll determine exactly where the drop-off point is gonna be, and then there'll be valet parked over in the grassy area. And we can also use, at that time of the night, we won't have anybody parked over here. So we can use this main paved parking if it's a rainy day. But that's just very convenient and close, and will cover the number of guests that they're anticipating.
Okay, and my question is more towards errant drivers not getting out onto the AOA or, you know, getting out onto the
Right.
airfield area, so there'll be people there directing
Yes,
them.
yes.
Maybe that, okay.
And the good news there is anything they hit belongs to the museum.
Yeah.
They have a vested interest to make sure that, that they have cones and volunteers and so forth, to make sure that none of their historical assets are.
Well, that's also
Damaged.
why the valet service.
Right.
The valet service.
Right.
It does multiple things, including make sure nobody's leaving drunk, because we have a vehicle that will take them to the hotel and, you know, so there's all kinds of, they can't drive out into the ramp because the valet guy has brought them their car.
Okay, very good. All right, no other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
something just occurred to me, that I think, you know, we go through finance, we go through minutes, director's report. This museum, I think, is so important to the community, and I'd like to know the interrelationship with the school system and anything else going on with the museum. Could we consider, you know, having an item on the agenda where we get a museum report?
Floyd County did that.
Are you willing to do it?
Mhm. I did it every month at Floyd, so.
Well, you know, this group right here reaches out to a lot of people in the county. And if we know things are going on, we can help you get the word out, and we can integrate better with the school system.
I would like to be mutual assets with you guys. You know, we help you, you help us. So,
Tom, I don't think we need to vote on that, right? We just, basically, it's the will of the group to add that as an agenda item. Just put it right after mine, so I'll do a director's report, and then we'll have a museum director's report. Is that acceptable? Okay. Now, you better limit her on time. 5 minutes?
what does Pete always say? Be brilliant, be brief, be gone.
Okay. Any questions on that?
No, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? carries. And at this time, we'll go ahead and enter into closed session to discuss litigation and real estate.
Harold, you
back.
want to do the business?
Oh, I got a motion for that, sorry.
I
Thank
make
you.
a motion, we approve.
Hang on.
Have a second?
Second.
Thank you, all in favor? Any opposed?
The RVR.
Okay, we'll report back in, advising that no actions were taken during the closed session. And with that said, we're with new business, comments or questions.
Mr. Chairman, Terry announced to us a couple of meetings ago that we needed to put on the street an RFQ for to renew our 5-year contract required by FAA for airport engineering consultant services. That RFQ has been placed on the street. We did get responses, and evaluations have been made on those responses. And I need to report out to the board what we found in our evaluations. And the selection has been made of the winning consultant team, and the rest of them, all of them will be notified today, immediately after this meeting. But anyway, the evaluation committee concluded that Holt Construction, or Holt Consulting Company, was the winning consultant on this process. And I want to provide that to the board. I don't think we need a motion or anything.
Well, we'll need a motion from the board to approve entering into the contract.
Okay, then I'll make that a motion, that we approve Holt Consulting as our consulting engineer for the term of the next 5-year term.
All right.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Very good. Any other new business comments or questions? If not, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The meeting is adjourned. Thank you for your time.